This man, he strikes a pro-Palestine protester with a long white pole and is part of a mob that pummels the man as he falls to the ground. Stop. Idan's mother and father proudly support Israel and defended their son's actions at UCLA, saying he is heading to Israel to join the IDF.
Regardless of whatever side you're on in this conflict, you should never, under any circumstance, be supportive of violent acts being committed against the other side. But unfortunately, one of the counter-protesters who showed up to the UCLA campus to respond to the pro-peace, pro-Palestinian protesters who had formed an encampment was supported by his parents, even though he was caught on camera committing acts of violence. And this is part of an investigation that CNN recently conducted. They poured through the videos that were posted online to try to identify some of the individuals who showed up on that campus. They wanted to see if these individuals were actually students or if they were provocateurs. And what they found was fascinating. So here's more on that 18-year-old high school student who showed up and started committing acts of violence against the protesters.
He's seen in multiple videos wearing this white mask, striking the barriers, throwing objects into the encampment. Without his mask, we see who he is. 18-year-old Idan On of Beverly Hills, a senior at a local high school.
Come inside to the kitchen. How do I get inside?
I spoke with his mother.
Hi there, are you Sharon? Hi. How are you? Hi, let me introduce us.
She did not want to be on camera, but quickly identified her son from this picture at UCLA that night. She described in detail how her son found the mask and pole on the ground and said he was defending himself in this fight. On her Facebook page, Idan On's mother posted and circled a screen grab of her son from a local TV station. She wrote in Hebrew, Idan went to bully the Palestinian students in the tents at UCLA. Idan's mother and father proudly support Israel and defended their son's actions at UCLA, saying he is heading to Israel to join the IDF.
He should live in Israel along with his family. I mean, if they think that it's totally okay to try to crack the skulls of peace protesters on the campus of UCLA here in America because they, love Israel so much and want to defend it no matter what, then go live in Israel. Okay, his actions, which again, we have evidence of, are unacceptable. By the way, same goes for the students who showed up to an administrator for the University of Michigan's home last night to essentially terrorize them, banging on the door, filming the house. Please don't do that dumb stuff. It is it runs counter to, I think, what the vast majority of the protesters are trying to accomplish here. And it's all over the press today. That is all they're talking about in regard to student protesters, because that is the kind of story they want to latch onto and play over and over and over again. So why do a favor by committing these types of acts, which are going to be, again, sprayed all over the internet, all over the press? Do not engage in violence, period. I don't care what side you're on. I just had to get that off my chest because it's so infuriating how counterproductive that is. And it keeps happening. There are these one-off stories, but those one-off stories end up causing a lot of damage.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
So the New York Times had conducted its own investigation of the campus of the UCLA campus, and basically what they focused on in their investigation was the lack of police response as the counter-protesters were violently attacking the encampment. And so they wrote that students and bystanders repeatedly called 911 and non-emergency lines, finding little help and calls that were disconnected. A dispatcher told one caller, pleading for help, that they were ending the call because, quote, I have actual emergencies to handle. Now remember, the counter-protesters were literally throwing fireworks into the encampment. Someone could have honestly been seriously injured. Someone could have died. The idea that this wasn't an actual emergency is pretty infuriating. I mean, an investigation should be done to figure out who that dispatcher was, because obviously this individual does not take their job seriously at all. Contract security officers who did not have sufficient authority or numbers to halt the escalating melee had been caught by surprise and left to wait for reinforcements that did not arrive for hours. Anthony Cabasa, a self-described conservative independent journalist. I think that label's important considering what you're about to hear from Anthony. He said the counter-protesters descended on the protest, pulling metal gates away from the group and attacking protesters. Quote, "We were all waiting for the LAPD to show up and they never did," Mr. Cabasa said in the interview. As the night went on, more and more pro-Israel folks started showing up, to the point where it was starting to get worrisome. Now, look, there were people who were injured. No severe injuries reported, luckily, no deaths reported, luckily. But you look at the videos of that violence and it is scary. I'm actually shocked that no one was seriously hurt. The governor's office, meaning Gavin Newsom's office, ended up sending in California Highway Patrol because local police apparently were not responding to calls for help. And some of the counter-protesters were, believe it or not, known anti-Semites who wanted to attack the Jewish students in the pro-peace encampment. Also among the counter-protesters that night was Narek Palyan, an activist known for making frequent anti-Semitic statements, as well as comments critical of gay and transgender people. He said he went alone and was motivated to show up in part because he had seen a video of a Jewish woman on the pro-Palestinian side criticizing white people. Quote, "I wanted to go find her specifically," he said, adding that he was not able to. Interesting, what was he planning on doing to the pro-Palestinian Jewish student who was part of the encampment? It's interesting because CNN caught up with him, asked him some questions, and his story was a little different when he spoke to them.
The man who is live streaming, Narek Palyan, appears to be a persistent agitator who posts anti-Jewish tropes on his social media accounts. But at UCLA, he stood with the pro-Israel crowd.
Hi, I'm Kyung Law from CNN.
Palyan claimed to us that he has a child at UCLA, though a student didn't accompany him that night, and that he had good intentions.
I was definitely keeping the peace, okay, at least trying to.
You weren't there to make it worse?
No, of course I wasn't there to make it worse.
Now, to be clear, there hasn't been any specific evidence or examples of him committing acts of violence when he was there. So unless we see something, we have to be clear about that. But why did he tell the New York Times he was specifically there looking to confront a Jewish student? But then when he talks to CNN, he's like, no, I was there to keep the peace. I was just there to keep the peace. I mean, someone who posts vile anti-Semitic stuff online, shows up and is part of the counter-protesters. Clearly, a very different story from what he told the Times. Anyway, he wasn't the only old dude or older dude who shouldn't have been on that campus, as CNN found. Let's watch.
Look at the counter-protesters. How many of them were UCLA students?
I would say basically none of them.
Who are the most aggressive offenders? A CNN investigation of hundreds of videos from multiple sources shows many of them are outsiders, not UCLA students. Tom Bibian recorded pulling bike racks, plywood, kicking protesters, throwing cones at the students in the encampment, water bottles at protesters, and yelling expletives. He's a Los Angeles resident, age 42.
I just want to know why students got arrested and that guy is still free. CNN tried to catch up with him and ask him some questions, and he got super salty with them and said they don't have permission to record him even though he was in a public space. When you guys are in a public space, you have no reasonable expectation of privacy, period. So CNN could have continued filming him, but they didn't. But my question is, if there's footage of him committing acts of violence, why is he free, has not been arrested, but the students who were part of that encampment were arrested? Just some questions, some follow-up questions that I hope reporters consider in some of the follow-up reporting, if there is any. But I do give CNN and the New York Times credit for investigating what happened on the UCLA campus because it gives us more clarity about who was involved in the protests, who was involved in the counter-protests, and which group was actually carrying out the violence on that specific campus.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.